Time for dinner. 2 Kings 13. And in the 23rd year of Joash, son of Ahazyahu, sovereign of Yehuda, Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, began to reign over Yisrael in Shomeron, and reigned 17 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, and followed the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Yisrael sin. He did not turn away from them. And the displeasure of Jehovah burned against Yisrael, and he gave them into the hand of Hazael, sovereign of Aram, and into the hand of Benhadad, son of Hazael, all the days. Then Jehoahaz sought the face of Jehovah, and Jehovah listened to him, for he saw the oppression of Yisrael, because the sovereign of Aram oppressed them. And Jehovah gave Yisrael a Savior, so that they came out from under the hand of Aram, and the children of Yisrael dwelt in their tents as before. However, they did not turn away from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, who had made Yisrael sin, but walked in them. Moreover, Asherah also remained in Shomeron, for he left of the army of Jehoahaz only 50 horsemen, and 10 chariots, and 10,000 footmen. For the sovereign of Aram had destroyed them, and made them like the dust at threshing. And the rest of the acts of Jehoahaz, and all that he did, and his might, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? So Jehoahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Shomeron, and Joash his son reigned in his place. In the 37th year of Joash, sovereign of Yehuda, Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, began to reign over Yisrael in Shomeron 16 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah. He did not turn away from all the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Yisrael sin. He walked in it. And the rest of the acts of Joash, and all that he did, and his might with which he fought against Amaziah, sovereign of Yehuda, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? So Joash slept with his fathers, and Jeroboam sat on his throne. And Joash was buried in Shomeron, and the sovereigns of Israel with the sovereigns. And Elisha had become sick with the sickness in which he died. And Joash the sovereign of Israel came down to him and wept over his face, and said, O my father, the chariots of Israel and their horsemen. And Elisha said to him, Take a bow and some arrows. And he took a bow and some arrows. And he said to the sovereign of Israel, Place your hand on the bow. So he placed his hand, and Elisha placed his hands on the hands of the sovereign, and said, Open the east window. And he opened it, and Elisha said, Shoot. And he shot. Then he said, The arrow of deliverance of Yahovah, and the arrow of deliverance from Aram, and you shall strike Aram at Aphek until it is finished. Then he said, Take the arrows. And he took them, and he said to the sovereign of Israel, Strike the ground. And he struck 3 times and stopped. And the man of Elohim was wroth with him, and said, You should have struck 5 or 6 times, then you would have stricken Aram till its utter destruction. But now you shall strike Aram only 3 times. And Elisha died, and they buried him, and the raiding bands from Moab came into the land in the spring of the year. And it came to be, they were burying a man, and there they saw a raiding band, and cast the man in the burial site of Elisha. And the man fell and touched the bones of Elisha, and came to life and stood on his feet. And Hazael, sovereign of Aram, oppressed Israel all the days of Jehoahaz. And Jehovah showed favor to them, and had compassion on them, and turned toward them, and the sake of his covenant with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Joachab, and would not destroy them or cast them from his presence as yet. And Hazael, sovereign of Aram, died, and Ben-Hadad his son reigned in his place. And Joash, son of Jehoahaz, recovered from the hand of Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, and the cities which he had taken out of the hand of Jehoahaz, his father, in battle. Joash struck him 3 times, and he recovered the cities of Israel. In the 2nd year of Joash, son of Joahaz, sovereign of Israel, Amaziah, son of Joash, sovereign of Yehuda, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jehoadin of Jerusalem. And he did what was right in the eyes of Jehovah. He did like his father David. He did according to all his father Joash did. However, the high places were not taken away. The people still slaughtered and burned incense on the high places. And it came to be, as soon as the reign was strengthened in his hand, that he struck his servants who had stricken his father the sovereign. But he did not put to death the children of the strikers, according to what is written in the book of the Torah of Moshe, in which Jehovah commanded, saying, Fathers are not to put to death for their children, and the children not put to death for the fathers, but each one is put to death for his own sin. He struck Edom in the valley of Salt, 10,000, and took Salah in battle, and called its name Yoktheel to this day. Amaziah then sent messengers to Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, sovereign of Israel, saying, Come, let us look each other in the face. And Jehoash, sovereign of Israel, sent Amaziah, sovereign of Yehuda, saying, The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar was in Lebanon, saying, Give your daughter to my son his wife, and a wild beast that was in Lebanon passed by and trampled the thistle. You have certainly stricken Edom, and your heart has lifted you up. Be esteemed, and say in your house, But why do you stir up yourself to evil, that you should fall, you and Yehuda with you? But Amaziah did not listen. So Jehoash, sovereign of Israel, went up, and he and Amaziah, sovereign of Yehuda, faced one another at Beth Shemesh, which belongs to Yehuda. And Yehuda was smitten before Israel, and they each fled to his tent. And Jehoash, sovereign of Israel, caught Amaziah, sovereign of Yehuda, son of Jehoash, son of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. And they came to Jerusalem, and he broke through the wall of Jerusalem at the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate 400 cubits, and took the gold and silver and all the objects that were found in the house of Jehovah, and in treasuries of the sovereign's house, and hostages, and returned to Shomron. And the rest of the acts of Jehoash which he did, and his might, and how he fought with Amaziah, sovereign of Yehuda, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? So Jehoash slept with his fathers, and was buried in Shomron with the sovereigns of Israel, and Jeroboam his son reigned in his place. And Amaziah, son of Joash, sovereign of Yehuda, lived 15 years after the death of Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, sovereign of Israel. And the rest of the acts of Amaziah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehuda? And they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. And they sent after him Lachish, and killed him there, and brought him on horses. And he was buried at Jerusalem with his fathers in the city of David. And all the people of Yehuda took Azariah, who was 16 years old, and set him up to reign instead of his father Amaziah. He built Elath and restored it to Yehuda. The sovereign slept with his fathers. In the 15th year of Amaziah son of Joash, the sovereign of Yehuda, Jeroboam son of Joash, the sovereign of Israel, began to reign in Shomeron, and reigned 41 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah. He did not turn away from all the sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, who had made Israel sin. He restored the border of Israel from the entrance of Hamath to the sea of the Arabah, according to the word of Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, which he had spoken through his servant Jonah son of Amittai the prophet, who was from Gath Hepher. For Jehovah saw that the affliction of Israel was very bitter, and there was no one, neither shut up nor left at large, to help Israel. And Jehovah had not said that he would blot out the name of Israel from under the heavens, but save them by the hand of Jeroboam son of Joash. And the rest of the acts of Jeroboam are all that he did in his might, how he fought, and how he recovered Damasek and Hamath for Yehuda and Israel. Are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? So Jeroboam slept with his fathers, the sovereigns of Israel, and Zechariah his son reigned in his place. In the 27th year of Jeroboam, sovereign of Israel, Azariah son of Amaziah, sovereign of Yehuda, began to reign. He was 16 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Yecholyahu of Jerusalem. And he did what was right in the eyes of Jehovah, according to all that his father Amaziah did. However, the high places were not taken away. The people still slaughtered and burned incense on the high places. And Jehovah smote the sovereign, so that he was a leper until the day of his death. And he dwelt in a separate house. And Jotham, son of the sovereign, was over the house, ruling the people of the land. And the rest of the acts of Azariah, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehuda? So Azariah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David. And Jotham his son reigned in his place. In the 38th year of Azariah, sovereign of Yehuda, Zechariah, son of Jeroboam, began to reign over Israel in Shomeron for 6 new moons. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, as his fathers had done. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Israel sin. And Shallum, son of Jabesh, conspired against him, and struck him in front of the people, and killed him, and reigned in his place. And the rest of the acts of Zechariah, see, they are written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel. This was the word of Jehovah, which he spoke to Jehu, saying, Your sons to the 4th generation are going to sit on the throne of Israel. And it came to be so. Shallum, son of Jabesh, began to reign in the 39th year of Uzziah, the sovereign of Yehuda, and he reigned a month of days in Shomeron. And Menahem, son of Gadi, went up from Tirzah, and came to Shomeron, and struck Shallum, son of Jabesh, in Shomeron, and killed him, and reigned in his place. And the rest of the acts of Shallum, and the conspiracy which he led, see, they are written in the books of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel. And Menahem struck Tipsah, and all who were there, and its borders, from Tirzah, because they did not open it to him. Therefore he struck it, and he ripped open all the pregnant women. In the 39th year of Azariah, sovereign of Yehuda, Menahem, son of Gadi, began to reign over Yisrael 10 years in Shomron. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Yisrael sin all his days. Pul, the sovereign of Ashshur, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, for his hand to be with him to strengthen the reign of his hand. And Menahem exacted the silver of Yisrael, of all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver to give to the sovereign of Ashur. And the sovereign of Ashshur turned back and did not stay there in the land. And the rest of the acts of Menahem, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? So Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah his son reigned in his place. And in the 50th year of Azariah the sovereign of Yehuda, Pekahiah the son of Menahem began to reign over Israel in Shomron for 2 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Yisrael sin. And Pekah, son of Ramalyahu, a chief officer of his, conspired against him and struck him in Shomron, in the high place of the sovereign's house, along with Argob and Aryeh, and with him were 50 men of Gilead. So he killed him and reigned in his place. And the rest of the acts of Pekahiah, and all that he did, see, they are written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel. In the 52nd year of Azariah, sovereign of Yehuda, Pekah, son of Ramalyahu, began to reign over Israel in Shomron for 20 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Yisrael sin. In the days of Pekah, sovereign of Yisrael, Tiglath-Pileser, sovereign of Ashur, came and took Ion, and Abel, Beth, Maacah, and Yanova, and Kedesh, and Hatzor, and Gilad, and Galil, all the land of Naphtali, and took them into exile to Ashshur. And Hoshea, son of Elah, led a conspiracy against Pekah, son of Ramalyahu, and struck him and killed him, and reigned in his place in the 20th year of Jotham, son of Uzziah. And the rest of the acts of Pekah, and all that he did, see, they are written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel. In the 2nd year of Pekah, son of Ramalyahu, sovereign of Israel, Jotham, son of Uzziyahu, sovereign of Yehuda, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Yerushalayim. And his mother's name was Yerusha, the daughter of Sadok. And he did what was right in the eyes of Jehovah. He did according to all that his father Uzziyahu did. However, the high places were not taken away. The people still slaughtered and burned on the high places. He built the upper gate of the house of Jehovah. And the rest of the acts of Jotham and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehuda? In those days Jehovah began to send Retzin, sovereign of Aram, and Pekah, son of Ramalyahu, against Yehuda. So Jotham slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. His father, and Ahaz his son, reigned in his place. In the 17th year of Pekah, son of Ramalyahu, Ahaz, son of Jotham, sovereign of Yehuda, began to reign. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and he did not do what was right in the eyes of Jehovah, his Elohim, and his father David had done. But he walked in the way of the sovereign of Israel, and he also made his son pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the nations, whom Jehovah had disposed of from before the children of Israel. And he slaughtered and burned incense on the high places, and on the hills, and under every green tree. Then Rezin, sovereign of Aram, and Pekah, son of Ramalyahu, sovereign of Israel, came up to Jerusalem to battle, and they besieged Ahaz, but they were unable to overcome him. At that time Rezin, sovereign of Aram, recovered Elath from Aram, and drove the men of Yehudah from Elath. And the Edomites went to Elath, and have dwelt there to this day. And Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, sovereign of Ashur, saying, I am your servant and your son. Come up and save me from the land of the sovereign of Aram, and from the hand of the sovereign of Israel, who are rising up against me. And Ahaz took the silver and gold that was found in the house of Jehovah, and in the treasuries of the house of the sovereign, and sent it as a present to the sovereign of Ashur. And the sovereign of Ashur listened to him. And the sovereign of Ashur went up against Damasek and captured it, and exiled it to Kir, and he killed Rezin. And sovereign Ahaz went to meet Tiglath-Pileser, sovereign of Ashur, at Damasek, and saw a slaughter place that was at Damasek. And sovereign Ahaz sent to Uriah the priest a sketch of the slaughter place and its pattern, according to all its workmanship. And Uriah the priest built a slaughter place according to all the sovereign Ahaz had sent from Damasek. And Uriah the priest made it before sovereign Ahaz came from Damasek. And when the sovereign came from Damasek, the sovereign saw the slaughter place, and the sovereign approached the slaughter place and made offerings on it. And he burned his ascending offering and his grain offering, and he poured his drink offering and sprinkled the blood of his peace offering on the slaughter place. And the bronze slaughter place, which he was before Jehovah, he brought from the front of the house, from between the new slaughter place and the house of Jehovah, and put it on the north side of his slaughter place. And sovereign Ahaz commanded Uriah the priest, saying, On the great slaughter place burn the morning ascending offering, and the evening grain offering, and the sovereign's ascending offering, and his grain offering, with the ascending offering of all the people of the land, and their grain offering and their drink offering, and sprinkle on it all the blood of the ascending offering, and all the blood of the slaughtering. And the bronze slaughter place is for me to inquire by. And Uriah the priest did according to all that sovereign Ahaz commanded. And sovereign Ahaz cut off the side panels of the stands, and removed the basins from them. And he took down the seat from the bronze oxen that were under it, and put it on a pavement of stones. And the covered way which they had built in the house for the Sabbath, and the sovereign's outer entrance, he took from the house of Jehovah because of the sovereign of Ashur. And the rest of the acts of Ahaz which he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehudah? So Ahaz slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Yizkiyahu his son reigned in his place.